okay, so you wanted to have a philosophical discussion about blockchain. You wanted to get deep into some stuff. So let's go.
All right. So I don't know. I mean, the reason. So I was before the break. I was saying the reason I was so interested in blockchain is the potential for it to have us control our own data, as in the idea behind data control and data residency and also data privacy. Those are all theoretically the data belongs to us, but it's not really, because we are actually putting these sets of data in large databases. Even if we're not talking about Facebook or Twitter, we're talking about like Google Drive, for example. It actually resides on Google Drive servers. Yes, Google has, encrypted data-to-data transmission, server-to-server transmission of data. Yes, but it's not something that you own. It's not something that you have. Now, of course, this does not mean everyone should just go back to the PC era and just put all of their data in their own devices. But there needs to be sort of a policy. There needs to be a way to. There needs to be an awareness in the public itself to actually have control over your own data. I think it's starting to form. We are starting to realize that Facebook and Twitter monetizes us, like we're their products basically, because they show ads to us, they analyze our thoughts, they analyze our buying patterns, and they sell to us, which is silly.
Well, yeah, now, the overlying thing is if the product is free, you're the product.
Yes.
If the service is free, you're the product.
Yeah, I remember that quote. I wanted to say that quote. I couldn't quite remember it because of the drinks. But
that's okay. I mean, I get better after I drink, so it's all good.
Okay, cool. We're balancing out. Okay. So like even Tim Berners-Lee, the guy who created the web itself, he's the inventor of the web. Back in 2018, I guess, 2 years ago, maybe, he made several statements about how the web was now too centralized, like controlled by multiple large companies, and he was talking about the web and also about social media in general. He made a few initiatives. I think one of them is called Inrupt, INRUPT. I'm pretty certain it's Inrupt. It should be Googleable. Let's check later. We can find the link. But so Tim Berners-Lee, the guy who invented the web, is saying that the web has not followed this vision because he wanted the web actually to be decentralized, right? And for people to actually have control over their own data. So the idea being, if we're actually talking about having these social media applications also having payment systems embedded in us, and all of these KYCs actually being stronger digital than they are physical, then the people who control the data actually have a lot of power, don't they? I mean, we already see that. I mean, even in the political discussions, and not to get political here, but the deplatforming of certain individuals, whether on the left or on the right, that's not correct, and that shouldn't be correct. That shouldn't be considered correct at all. But based on the very structure of these companies, of these social media companies, that's something that is inherent as an inherent flaw to the system, because the control resides on the ones who actually maintain the servers, who hold the servers in their hands, who have access to the, who have access control to the system itself. So I think, I remember your first interview was with Steam, right? Like I place a lot of hope.
I was going to say that Steam is one of those systems that, but I mean, that is still not without its flaws. I mean, in Steam, if you hold enough tokens, you can actually influence, so you can buy influence on Steam or Hive, whichever one you want to choose to go on. Probably Hive, just due to the political side of it. But I mean, yes, it is better than, say, having one person or a few people in a company like YouTube that will basically say, this is what meets our community guidelines and this doesn't. Whereas Steam is a little bit more democratized, But the problem that may happen, and we have seen it with the attempted corporate takeover of Steam and then the fork into Hive, is that when you're backing something that can be controlled by the accumulation of tokens, you're still allowing that power to gravitate towards certain individuals over time, and then it becomes centralized. Exactly. So, I mean, I don't think we've yet reached the correct model for that, because and I was actually going to say, I was actually going to bring up this comment before as well, but you still do need that. The unfortunate thing is that, when you democratize things, that leads to certain problems. And then when you have basically an autocrat, that also leads to other problems on the other side. So, I mean, it's important sometimes with these large scale operations, it's important to have a CEO or someone at the helm that can say, this is the vision, this is where we're going. Whereas sometimes when you end up with a democratized system, you end up going nowhere because no one can agree on anything. And I think that's where the real philosophical problem is with these systems.
It's a trade-off between two models, basically.
What's going to be better, which is why we've sort of arrived politically where we are, where we have democratically elected leaders for a certain period of time. So it's like, okay, you can lead the country, organization, whatever, for X period of time. After 3-5 years, whatever, we're going to have a review. You can get voted out. You can get voted back in. And that's why, for example, that's why I say no matter what you say about the American political system, I think it's better than the Australian political system, because we have a 3-year term as opposed to a 5-year term that they have or a 4-year term they have in the States. Because the longer that you are able to stay in power, the more you're able to enact your vision and not have to worry about the next election. Whereas here we've got a 3-year election cycle. So after you've gotten into power, you've got 6 months to settle in, 12 months to do actual work, and then 18 months to then plan your next election, which is just insane. However, the one thing relative to crypto I want to build up is that you mentioned that the guy who started the internet has sort of seen his vision distorted over time. It's now becoming too centralized, blah, blah, blah. Do you think that the possibility exists that the same thing might happen with Satoshi's vision of Bitcoin, that what he imagined it would be, which was a peer-to-peer payment system, because of maybe some flaws in block size and things like that basically we're never going to hit a point where, unless there is a block subsidy, which is what a block reward is. The block reward is a subsidy for when miners are eventually going to be able to earn fees. They're going to be able to live off transaction fees, considering the low amount of transactions that can fit into a block, and the fact that, in order to make miners profitable in, say, another 4 or 5 years' time, when there's another, or in 4 years' time, there's another halving, is the blockchain network actually going to be able to sustain like enough profitability for miners to keep the entire network going? And that's where I have a look at some like times like that, when you look at that and you're like, wait, we need to put more blocks in, otherwise this whole thing's not going to be profitable. That maybe it would be a good idea to have a CEO as opposed to a mythology behind your founding.
Blasphemy, but okay.
Yeah.
So let me respond to that. But I want to respond to something you said earlier
Sure.
as well. So that's why I said that customers should have awareness of the importance of decentralization. Simply because, like at the beginning, you said like Steam, Hive, all the issues with the fork and everything. That's based on literal capitalism, right? Like you have more capital, then you have more control, and the control that you have basically translates over a control over a set of a subset of the network that becomes its own network. Now, the thing is, the common customers, and I'm also grouping traders into it as well, they don't care about the importance of decentralization. Most of them only care about profits, or basically at least this site is running. At least I have some features, and that's I think that's the primary issue, is that we don't have sort of awareness. We don't think that it's important. But it is.
We're talking about two things. One was, I made two comments. You were talking about ownership of data, And then there was another point, which was my Bitcoin comment that you needed to respond to. So let's go with your ownership of data. Was that what you were talking about? People need to be aware of the ownership of data?
Yeah. Well, actually, more aware. So what I actually said was people need to be more aware about the values of having a decentralized system, taking care of their data, instead of a centralized system that controls all aspects of their data and might misuse it. Right now, even in the blockchain community, that is not universal. And I'm referring to like even the traders. Most of them are aware of it, that they don't act upon it because they're not incentivized towards it. They're not incentivized towards decentralization. They're incentivized towards their the value of their own tokens. And the regular user, the people who are actually using Steam just to do the things that they're doing on regular social media, they just care about the feature function. They're not thinking about the things about the data ownership and who controls the network, and whether censorship is controlled by one person within the network, one rich person within the network. I mean, it might not be an issue now, but it could be an issue in the future. So I think we need to actually still focus about the values of the decentralization part and communicate it very clearly to everyone, especially those who are actually having data within these social media applications. And because it's not just social media, the world is changing really quickly. People are in space. People have been in space. People are back in space because of SpaceX. But also, the Neuralink is coming soon. Elon Musk said in Joe Rogan that it will reach production in 5 years. Of course, it's going to be limited production. I assume that that's a brain computer. That's brain computer interface, man. That's going to connect the data in your thoughts to probably it wouldn't start like that. It probably will be used to help disabled people, etc. But it's going to head towards that. It's going to head towards a time where you control your systems through your thoughts. Now, if that happens, then there is a system with access to your thoughts, and if it's still controlled by a centralized system that you don't have access and control over that data, then people can read your thoughts. The rich can read your thoughts. It sounds weird, but that's true. When we're not even talking about, like CRISPR and all of those other the bioinformatics stuff. We're already sequencing our DNA by sending it to 23andMe and all of those other startups that sequence your genes. We send them and we pay them like $70, $50, and then I'm Asian, or apparently I'm 1/8 Spanish, for example, right? But the thing is, that data is worth a lot more than $50, and you just gave it to them, and you're not getting money out of it, but they're actually partnering, like 23andMe. I think it was 23andMe, one of the companies. Basically, it was found out they partner with pharmaceutical companies in order to sell that set of data, and that's those pharmaceutical companies use it to create medicine. You're not seeing a cent of that medicine. You're not seeing a cent of the profits from that medicine, for example.
Yeah.
That is your data.
Just so people know that 23andMe is the company that does the genetic testing. So you take the spit swab, and then you send that back, and you find out that you're 7% Neanderthal. Your ancestors are from somewhere, and blah blah blah. So just in context, every time you do one of those tests, you pay $100 or $200 or something for the test.
Yeah.
You spit in a thing, and they come back, and they give you this feel nice genealogy report, but really you're paying a company to sell that DNA data to pharmaceutical companies.
Yeah. So and even like if you go let's say we don't go 5 years, we go 10 years, we go 12 years, we go 20 years. Brain uploads will happen, man. Like even now there are a lot of deep fakes of I can have a bot that acts like me. I mean, that's Joe Rogan has one. Someone created it for him because he has a lot of video of him, of course. But of course, that bot, that Joe Rogan bot, does not have his mind. Of course, it's just basically special effects. But with the Neuralink, wait 10 years, people will create applications that just read your brain and just oh, this person. Maybe it will start by I'm the only person who knows what kind of dresses I like, what kind of suits I like, what kind of what kind of games I like, for example. And I might not have time to shop, for example. And I send over an intelligent agent that is programmed with the contents of my head, basically, the stuff that I like. And I have a personal shopper. It might start with that. But it'll end with basically a set of a model of your mind that resides somewhere. Hopefully, it doesn't reside in a server that is owned by someone else, and you don't have access to that data or the ownership to that data. Because otherwise, you might find yourself in 2050 walking into a 7-Eleven, and behind the counter, you see a bot that looks like you.
Yeah. Well, we actually, I was at a,
would you like fries with that?
Yeah, I was at a conference in Malaysia once, and we actually had a debate on this about whether or not that would be a good or a bad thing, because it's like how much do people value convenience over ownership of their data? Like the average human being, is it that you could go to your local grocery store, or I think over there, I mean here in Australia it's like Woolworths and Coles. Over there I think it's what is it? Carrefour or Indomart?
Carrefour, yeah, okay.
Carrefour, like the big one, or Indomart, or whatever.
The large supermarket. Yeah.
And then you could basically walk in there and they'll already have your order ready to go. It's like you just walk in. It's like, hi, yep, we knew you were on the way. Your order's ready. This is everything that we think you need. Check it. If you need anything else, whatever. Okay. Then if you change the order, that would change the database, and then they would adjust that. They would adjust the buying habits for the next time. You get to a point that if any time you leave the house, the store that you go to will know what you're going there to buy.
Look. I get it. I'm not a Luddite. I'm not a Luddite. I mean, I like having. Why am I holding this remote? I actually really like. That's a gadget. I really actually like having those services. Of course, everyone likes having convenience, right? But my vision of a future with those systems also has an opt-out. Like, if one day I say that, okay, I'm no longer shopping at Carrefour, I'm shopping at Giant, for example, and I'm no longer shopping at Carrefour. Carrefour cannot have my data because they suck, because I don't know, I don't like their CEO or something. I can basically rescind their access to my data and make sure they don't have access to that data anymore. Do those systems exist? Not 100%. You can still have, of course, data can be copied. They have access to my data once. They have access forever because they can copy it. Sure. But in the future, it might. It can actually be created if the entire computer network is more decentralized. You can actually have a control of data that resides really in the hands of the user. And this is not just, giving the data, but also removing access to the data as well. And that I think is more. So one crazy thing that I keep on thinking. I don't know if this has been said, but if we have brain uploads again, 2050, 2060, I don't know, we might be old people. But if we have brain uploads, the only way we we would be piles of data, right? Like we would be a model, but that's a pile of data basically. The only way for a pile of data to own something and own itself is if the system is decentralized. Think about it. If the system is centralized and it's on some person's server, even though we have an account there and we control that account, we're not controlling ourselves. We're not controlling the data. The data could be, wiped. The admin can wipe it. Yeah.
Essentially, if it's not decentralized, you're still at risk of human interference.
Yes.
And
yes.
obviously the pursuit of profit, which is fairly
Exactly.
strong in our psyche.